You're listening to Health Professional Radio with Wayne Bucklar. Today my guest is Parry Aliferis, and Parry joins us from Sydney in Australia, and he is the editor and brand manager of Your Health. Parry, welcome to Health Professional Radio.
Thanks, Wayne. It's great to be on the line with you today and looking forward to having a chat.
Now, Parry, Your Health is not a business name that sort of tells me instantly what it is you do. You know, it's if it was Harry's Plumbing, I'd have a really good idea what that business did. But Your Health doesn't kind of give me the whole picture. So fill me in on what it is that Your Health does.
Sure, Wayne. And point taken as well. In the unfortunate position, we've inherited a name that was invented about 17 years ago. So I get that kind of feedback all the time. So just a brief overview of what we do. The service was started by a GP, and he created a newsletter basically on the side of his desk, which was a way of him communicating and educating his patients while they were in the waiting room. So it basically spread from one GP's philosophy to try and provide his patients with quality, informative information about health and general health topics while they were, waiting for him in his practice, and then eventually spread throughout Australia and became, I guess, one of the leading, GP publications in that it's a publication that GPs subscribe to, usually on an annual basis, and it's information that they can provide to their patients to read while they're waiting. It's also a way of them meeting their accreditation needs. So part of the accreditation requirements for GPA and AGPAL is that, for instance, the practice information must be available to the patient, in a printed format. So often what we do is we couple the two together. We put something that is a mandatory or essential requirement under the GP's accreditation requirements, and we couple that with, an attractive and professionally printed newsletter that they can read while they're waiting. So it serves two purposes, as well as the printed material, which is the quarterly publication that we send out to our subscribers. We also now couple that with a website. As you can imagine, a lot of businesses and GPs are eventually getting over the line in terms of going digital and getting websites. So we do provide the information that we have printed, as well as giving the GPs a website so that they have the basic information online. So their existing patients and new patients can find them and, I guess, get some information before going in to see them. So there's the two products now. There's the printed and also the electronic copy of the newsletter, but the websites as well. So hopefully that gives you a bit more of an idea about what we do.
Yeah, it does, Parry, and it's one of those things that you just never notice until your attention's drawn to it. I've seen similar material in GP surgery, and it might have even been your material, and it's just never occurred to me that somewhere behind the scenes is someone who has to write and edit and publish this material before it can find its way to the coffee table in the waiting room.
That's right, and that's one of our biggest challenges in terms of the future is making that material stand out and relevant amongst all the other publications and magazines and all that sort of paraphernalia that sits around in a doctor's waiting surgery. You're
probably competing against a 3-year-old copy of Women's Weekly, so that could be a challenge.
That's right. Yes, they have some very informative articles in there as well, Wayne.
So, Parry, do you write the material for these yourselves, or is it written by GPs themselves, or how does the clinical material get produced?
Yeah, good question. So obviously the original owner of the business was a GP himself, so he was qualified to research and write the material. Given that I'm not a GP, I prefer not to take the risk. So we have a qualified medical writer who researches and writes all the articles. We go through a planning cycle every sort of quarter, straight after the conditions, or whether it be new treatments, advices and plans. So very much try to, I guess, balance out a lot of the not very well researched hype, I guess, that can pop up in the mass media, and try to bring a balanced look at a lot of those topics. As you know, a lot of people tend to, read the headline and think, oh, okay, that's great, I'll go and get that supplement, or that must be the right answer, and this new treatment's going to work for me. And obviously, part of what we do through our education via the GP to their patients is to try and balance out some of that material and give some perspective. And of course, as we know in the medical world, things that might sound great or might have been trialled on a very small number of people aren't necessarily, what they appear to be, or haven't gone through the efficacy process to become, proven treatments in inverted commas. So a lot of that is, in terms of the writing and the research that we do, is to, I guess, balance out some of those topics that are out there in the mass media.
Yes, there's often a degree of balance needed, particularly if the original research has been undertaken by people who have a
That's right, and so the peer review process, it's another very important part of what we do in terms of our research and publication. So all of our articles are reviewed by a panel of GPs for accuracy, so that we ensure that there is a balance there. And I guess for many people, we want to hear that something that we've heard on the news or in a snippet or in a headline is the answer for our our ailments. Quite often it takes a lot more time and a lot more peer review studies and things like that before it is medically proven. And because of the time that it takes, I think a lot of people get frustrated and think, well, I'll just do my own little trial at home. But of course, the side effects and long-term effects are the things that need to be researched before we can just start a new treatment for something. Yes, that's right. So when I talked about the the electronic. I talked briefly about the electronic distribution of the newsletter. As we know, a lot more patients are looking for their information online, and what we find often is that there can be a disparity between the readiness of the GP to offer websites and electronic services, but on the other side, the needs of the patient and the consumer. So what we try and do is to make it easy for the GP, if you like. We handle the electronic subscription to a newsletter and websites and reminders and things like that online. We also work with an online appointment service so that we can provide free online appointments to GPs. So that if it's something that, and quite often in the case where it's a smaller GP practice, there might be only one or two or less than 5 GPs, for instance. They don't have the time to necessarily go out and research web designers and online appointments and compare all the different services. So what we can offer them is, I guess, getting set up as a one-stop solution, being able to set up their newsletter, their website, online appointments, and have an electronic copy of the newsletter as well. So we try to make it as easy as possible for GPs to get those services up and running, because we feel that they're of such benefit and that there is such a strong demand by patients for those services.
Yes, and I've had clinicians.
Well, that's right, and it's so much easier now. Like probably 5 years ago, say you needed to get an expert in and end up be the webmaster forever and a day, and you could never get rid of them. But there's a lot of services like ours now that kind of make it a very easy step-through process for you to do that. So yeah, why would you? I mean, a GP's time is much more valuable than many of ours. So they should. We always advocate that they spend their time, looking after patients rather than trying to become web designers or programmers. Yeah, Wayne, look, I think that the takeaway message for everyone listening today is that it's about education, educating the patient as much as possible, and that it doesn't have to be as hard as it seems. I think, essentially, better communication between the clinician and their patient, or the GP and their patient, and this works in a whole range of settings as well. But establishing better trust really starts with better communication, and the more resources that we can provide to our patients, the more confidence and trust they'll have with us, and the more likely they are to, proceed with our services and I guess to recommend us to others. So, it really becomes an advocacy issue. And, the other takeaway message, I guess, is that, there's people out there that can do it probably and get you up and running faster than you could yourself. So it doesn't have to be as hard as it perhaps seems at sometimes. Well, definitely, some of them definitely drive me nuts. Sometimes they keep me awake at night. But look, I think that just leading on from my previous point is, the fact that obviously there's a lot more accessibility around, things like websites and newsletters and things like that. A lot of people, I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that, well, it's just easy, so I may as well do this myself or do it in-house. And seen some of our clinicians and some of our GPs make the mistake of thinking that things were just, they look easy, so they must be easy. And then down the line, inevitably, they'll hit hurdles around either the quality of the work, or they end up having to hire 2 or 3, different contractors. So they end up actually overcomplicating life for themselves a bit. So yeah, probably the biggest misconception is that it's easy to do. I think like anything, that when someone does something really well, they can make it look easy, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's the case. There's a lot of background work and research that's probably gone into it. So yeah, that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions that drives me crazy. Thank you, Wayne, and I appreciate your time as well.
Well, with a little bit of luck, we'll help to dispel some of that amongst some of our listeners today, having heard you chat with us. I do appreciate your time, Parry. Thank you for joining us on the radio. You've been listening to my conversation with Parry Aliferis, the editor and brand manager of Your Health. Now, if you've just missed our chat, then you missed a very informative look into some of the services that are available to GPs. The good news, however, is we have a transcript of our conversation on our website. We've also got the full interview as an audio archive on YouTube and on SoundCloud. You can access all of those through our website at www.hpr.fm. And if you'd like some more information or to get in touch with Parry, you can go to their website at www.yourhealth.net.au. This is Wayne Bucklar. You've been listening to Health Professional Radio.